Today, I'll talk about what's in people's psychological mind behind the sexual activities, including sexual apathy, sexual fantasies, promiscuity, rushing into sexual relationship, having sex with prostitutes, and of course, sadism and masochism. And how does our childhood affect our sexual behaviors? Karen Horney explained the above sexual activities in her book. First, we needed to separate sex from love. Because the natural function of sexuality, number one, works as a means of physical satisfaction and of intimate human contact. Number two, sexual well-functioning adds in many ways to the feeling of self-confidence. When love and sex are separate, the sexual functions are increased in the following three ways. Sexual activities become not only a release of sexual tensions, but also manifold of non-sexual psychic tensions. They can be a vehicle to drain self-contempt in masochistic activities, or a means to cut out self-torment by sexual degrading or tormenting of others, sadistic practices. Number two, for detached people, sexuality may be the only bridge to others, being an obvious substitute for human closeness. It shows in the haste with which people may rush into sexual relationships without giving each other a chance to find out whether they have anything in common. Usually, the initial rush itself is a sign of their being too inhibited to develop a good human relationship. Number three, the normal relationship between sexuality and self-confidence shifts to one between sexuality and pride. Sexual functioning, being attractive or desirable, the quantity or variety of sexual experiences all become a matter of pride more than of wishes and enjoyment. Then how our sexual activities are affected? They're not about our genuine sexual desire and expressions anymore. People have sexual relationships not because he wants them, but because he should please his partner, because he must have a sign of being wanted or loved, because he must allay some anxiety, because he must prove his mastery and potency. Sexual relationships, in other words, are more determined by the drive to satisfy some compulsive needs. Now the partner ceases to be an individual and becomes a sexual object. So sexual activities, including masturbation and fantasies, are often compulsive in nature. How do people's attitudes toward love and sex are affected? For one detached person, he may tend to exclude not just love, but also sex from his life. Sexual apathy. For another detached person, sexual experiences are important and enjoyable. He may have had them with many different people, but always, consciously or unconsciously, was on his guard not to form any attachment. The nature of such transient sexual contact depends on mainly two factors: expansive or self-effacing trends. In every one of us, we all have two trends. One is called expanding trend. We all wanted to be assertive, even aggressive. We wanted to master things. Another trend is we wanted to stay small. We wanted to be modest. We are not confident. So whether we're aggressive or passive all depends on which trend is prevailing inside us. Now let's back to the transient sexual contact. The lower one's estimate of himself, the more will these contacts be restricted to persons beneath his own social or culture level, for instance, prostitutes. The third way how our attitude toward sex and love are affected is an overemphasis may be placed on love and sex in actual life. Love and sex then are glorified by conquering or surrendering. But how can we have both genuine love and sex at the same time? The author points out that the special difficulties existing toward love and sex are, after all, only one expression of one's total neurotic disturbances. But if the idea of self-realization or self-growth still have some meaning and vitality, it's possible to outgrow one's difficulties. As psychologists often see during counseling, when one marriage partner is changing for the better, seeing with his own eyes that change is possible, seeing the possibility of a better relationship, the other one will have an incentive to outgrow his own trouble, so be the change you want to see. Why people separate love and sex in the first place, and why we're emotionally closed even for genuine love. In the book Primal Scream, the author says that, in the context of the typical family situation, the child must not show pain because it would betray the family secret. Revealing unhappiness would point up the parents' inadequacies. Instead, the child turns these feelings of rage, sadness, and hatred on the self and becomes more inward and secretive about how he or she really feels. The child learns to go underground with feelings that aren't acceptable, intuitively knowing that to show these feelings would make the parents feel angry or guilty. But as human beings, we have the innate tendency to grow. In the book The Fantasy Bond by Robert Firestone, when he talks about therapy, each person is encouraged to live the inward world and self-nourishing habits. One's energy and effort must be redirected toward taking another chance on finding satisfaction in the external world through goal-directed behavior. Therapy is an attempt to make reality more inviting. I like the way how he put it, taking another chance. A lot of us maybe even don't know we're emotionally closed. Am I? Maybe to some extent. We think that's just the way how we are. We didn't realize we were hurt before. We didn't understand why we behave this way. But now, by understanding us, we can learn how to open up, to really accept the closeness with people, really live life to the fullest. If you want to learn Mandarin, you can watch the Chinese version of this video by click the link above, go to my another channel. And I'll put the book links for both this book, Karen's book, and the Primal Scream. It's a very good way to understand us. If you find value in my channel, subscribe if you haven't, and share with your friends and give me a thumb up. Thank you and see you next time.